Welcome to the Purdue Equine Center Shield Sexton Site-Specific Safety Orientation. All contractors must attend orientation before beginning work on site. Workers will be required to sign in at orientation and will receive a hard hat sticker which must be displayed while working. Owners, design team, and visitors must provide notification of visit. They must check in at the job site trailer and have proper personal protective equipment. Orientation is held every weekday at 8 a.m.
Changes in the start time will be posted on the outside of the Shield Sexton job site trailer. Additional orientation may be scheduled on a case-by-case basis with a member of the Shield Sexton management team.
Key project contacts include the following individuals:
Your emergency contacts after dialing 911 for this project are
GC Site Superintendent Joe Chris, CMA Project Manager Dirk Dudek,
the Shield Sexton Safety Director. A long continuous blast is the Seek Shelter Order. The all-clear signal will be provided by a member of the Shield Sexton management team. A series of short blasts is the Evacuation Order. The evacuation rally point for this site is the Shield Sexton Job Site Office. Eating areas. Absolutely no eating in areas where work is being performed. Eat only in the designated areas around the office trailer and in the parking lot, and do your part to clean up after breaks. Restrooms. Portable toilets are provided for your use on this job site. They will be serviced weekly. Do your part to keep them as clean as possible. Housekeeping. Keep your work site clean at all times. Your area must be broom swept daily, and the material storage policy for this project is all materials must be on a pallet, on a rack on cribbing, and properly chalked. Any materials left lying on the ground will be considered trash and removed to the dumpster at the expense of the contractor. Pick up and remove all tripping and fall hazards whenever you see them. Park only in the designated parking areas and do your part to keep mud and dirt off of the streets.
Smoking is in designated areas only.
In the event of a non-life-threatening situation, first aid cabinets are available for your use inside the Shield Sexton Management Office. Regardless of the severity of an incident, please report that incident immediately and provide a written report within 24 hours.
If treatment at a local clinic is required, the closest clinic location to this project is Priority Care, located at 30 West Rampart Road, Suite 250, Shelbyville, Indiana, 46176. The telephone number is 317-398-7644. Please see a member of the management team for a map to the clinic.
In the event of a life-threatening situation, dial 911 immediately. After contacting 911, contact your Shield Sexton management representative. You will also be asked to provide an incident investigation within 24 hours and a corresponding written report. Your management representative and safety director may be asked to attend an incident review meeting within 7 business days of the incident. Building fire extinguishers are available for your use in the event of an emergency. They are for emergency use only. Your organization must provide tasked fire extinguishers anytime you bring additional combustibles or flammables into the building. You will be asked to provide tasked fire extinguishers anytime you conduct hot work, which is any activity that produces an external spark or flame. Hot work permits are required when we reach 70% completion, anytime you are working within 10 feet of an existing building or inside an operations area. The hot work permit must be present at all times, and a trained fire watch must be present. The fire watch is responsible for removing all flammables and combustibles from the area prior to the first spark being struck. You must not conduct any hot work in a flammable storage area. The minimum fire extinguishers for hot work procedures is a 10-pound ABC fire extinguisher. The fire watch must remain 30 minutes past the time the last spark was struck. Property damage and security. All incidences must be reported to Shield Sexton regardless of their severity. Don't take any chances. Report suspicious behavior and provide a written report within 24 hours. Equipment. Only trained personnel will be authorized to operate equipment on a Shield Sexton project. Please take a moment to get out your qualifications card for boom lifts, scissor lifts, cranes, forklifts, or other equipment you may operate while working on this facility. As an operator, you will be required to perform a documented pre-operational inspection prior to the beginning of each workday. Certain equipment, such as forklifts and cranes, require written inspection. Those written inspections must be provided to Shield Sexton daily. Know what's around you at all times. Ensure that you yield to pedestrians at all times. Hard hat, long pants, 4-inch sleeves, and leather boots are required at 100% of the time on this project. Safety glasses and face shields are required when it's appropriate for the operation. Per your written safety program, the safety data sheet, or tool you may be using at the time. Code of conduct. Absolutely no drugs, firearms, or alcohol will be tolerated on this project at any time. Ensure that you are professional at all times. Understand that you're representing both your organization and Shield Sexton. Safety violations. Your first violation will be a verbal warning. Your second violation will be a written warning. Your third violation may result in a 3 to 5 day suspension from the project. Your fourth violation will result in removal of the employee or the organization from the project. Shield Sexton reserves the right to remove any employee for a blatant violation or for belligerence regarding any violation. This concludes the site-specific portion of your orientation. Please sit back and watch the video that follows. It will provide you with everything you need to stay safe and leave your mark while working on the Shield Sexton project.
Employee-focused. Contractor-focused. Safety-focused. Since 1962, Shield Sexton has prided itself on these core beliefs. Every day we demonstrate our commitment to safety by doing everything in our power to ensure our employees and contractor employees work in a safe, secure environment and return home safely every day. For more than 50 years, Shield Sexton has been consistently recognized for job site safety. We've received numerous awards from clients, builders and contractors associations, and the insurance industry. Together, we can have a safe, fun place to work. We're proud of our company and its safety record. That's why we're 100% committed to creating a safe place to work. Every day, we're building an aware and safety-conscious workforce where everyone has an opportunity to leave their mark. Our training program is the foundation of our safety culture. Improving the knowledge of every person who steps foot on one of our projects is the path to zero accidents. Communication is essential. We offer training to all employees and contractor employees for the conditions their scope of work requires. To ensure success, Shield Sexton has implemented a safety program, a concise set of basic rules and regulations each and every one of us is expected to follow. This video will present these rules to you, arming you with the information you need to be safe today, tomorrow, and for many years to come. General safety information. Your site foreman or job site supervisor will hold weekly safety meetings, which you will be required to attend. You will also be required to read and sign a daily task analysis, which will be completed by your job site supervisor. Substance abuse testing. To ensure a safe workplace, Shield Sexton has a strict substance abuse policy. At a minimum, you'll be required to take a post-incident drug and alcohol screen. Shield Sexton also reserves the right to conduct reasonable suspicion drug and alcohol testing. Disciplinary procedures. Knowing the safety rules isn't enough to ensure a safe workplace. We must all put those rules into practice. As employees and contractors on our projects, you have an obligation to your coworkers and to the organization that operations under your care, custody, and control are carried out in a safe manner. For that reason, we have a disciplinary policy with regard to safety procedures. First, you will receive a verbal warning. Second, you will receive a written warning. Third, you will receive a 3 to 5 day suspension from the project. Fourth, you will be removed from the site. Actions considered dangerous to life and health are cause for immediate removal. Shield Sexton reserves the right to remove anyone who is unfit, guilty of improper conduct, or determined to be detrimental to the project. All violations will be documented and placed in the project file. If you're in a position of authority, you may be held accountable for the actions of those working for you. We take safety seriously. By working together, we can make our job sites safe and welcoming places to work. Housekeeping. The first line of defense against accidents is housekeeping. As a construction professional, you must do your part to maintain a clean and safe job site. You'll need to clean while you work, after completing a task, and at the end of the day. The following areas must be kept clean and free of obstructions at all times: walkways, stairway landings, and emergency exits. To prevent tripping hazards, rolling material such as pipe, all thread, or conduit must be picked up immediately. Because we work in construction, our walking and working surfaces are always changing. Be mindful of your working surface. You may experience elevation changes or stored items in your work area. Housekeeping is the best way to protect ourselves and others from trip hazards. Clean up your area at the end of each day and periodically throughout the day, storing materials on pallets or dunnage. Snow, ice, and rain can create slippery conditions on projects, so maintaining your work areas in these situations is even more critical. Heat and cold stress. You spend many hours outdoors during the work week. Air temperature, humidity, and clothing can increase the risk of developing heat and cold-related illnesses. Consider these safety options. In heat, drink appropriate levels of fluids throughout the day. Limit exposure time, including scheduling certain activities during cooler times of the workday. Mechanize heavy jobs and try to increase airflow. Wear appropriate lightweight clothing. Heat-related illness can begin with heat stress and move quickly to heat stroke, which is life-threatening. If you see signs of heat-related illness, contact your supervisor and move the affected person to a cool, dry place with circulating air. If symptoms don't improve, contact your local emergency number for medical care. In the cold, wear clothing that's layered for warmth but offers mobility. Keep a change of clothes handy in case you get wet. We recommend wearing hat and gloves at all times during severe cold. If possible, take breaks in warm areas. Personal protective equipment. As a craftsperson, you may be exposed to several different hazards. We're going to review the personal protective equipment, or PPE, you need to protect yourself on projects. Hard hats must be worn forwards, or per the manufacturer recommendations if designed to be worn backwards. Hard hats must be in good working order and used properly. Safety glasses must be worn at all times. Only clear or transition glasses are allowed indoors. Employees and contractors who want to wear prescription glasses are required to wear only ANSI Z87.1 approved lenses with side shields, if applicable. Otherwise, they'll be required to wear safety glasses in addition to prescription eyewear. Gloves are required for most tasks. Cut-level gloves may be required when performing material handling operations with sharp objects. or when performing demolition operations. Footwear requirements are, at a minimum, leather work boots. Any other footwear will not be permitted to be worn on a project. Face shields must be worn in conjunction with your hard hat, must be worn in addition to safety glasses, and must be worn at all times when using the following tools: a cutoff saw, a chop saw, any type of abrasive wheel or compressed disc, grinders, powder-actuated tools, jackhammers, chipping hammers, and during heavy demolition operations. Welding hoods or goggles must be worn in conjunction with your hard hat, must be worn during all welding operations, and should have an appropriate level of shading. Tinted face shields or goggles with appropriate shade should be worn during all cutting torch operations. Hearing protection is required for all operations more than 90 decibels. A good rule of thumb: if you have to raise your voice to speak to the person next to you, you're higher than 90 decibels. Respiratory protection is another concern. On average, our lungs take 16 to 24 breaths of air every minute. But if that air is full of pollutants like dust, fumes, mist, gases, or smoke, we risk serious injury. That's why some chemicals on our projects could require respiratory protection. The regulations for respiratory protection state that anyone wearing a respirator must be appropriately trained, have been medically evaluated by a licensed physician, be qualitative fit tested for a necessary respirator, and all site-specific safety data information and respiratory safety programs confirmed prior to entering a job site. Elevated work and fall protection. Gravity doesn't rest. Falls are the leading cause of workplace fatalities, approximately 34% in the construction industry. That's why some means of fall protection is required for everyone from 6 feet above a lower level. This is accomplished by a 42-inch handrail, 21-inch mid-rail, and toe board, or a 5-point harness with shock-absorbing lanyard attached to an attachment point that can withstand 5,000 force-pounds. This doesn't include all thread, unistrut, conduit, or pipe. All attachment points should be above your head and designed for fall protection purposes. 100% tie-off is required if you're operating a boom lift. When using scissor lifts, your feet must remain on the platform at all times. If that's not possible, or you have to lean over the handrails, you must use a personal fall protection system. You can only tie off to a scissor lift if it has a designated tie-off point. Much of the work we do is in elevated places. Though we use several devices to reach this work, the most common tool is a ladder. Adhering to the following precautions will ensure you reach your destination safely. Step ladders must be fully open when in use. You should always face the treads of the ladder. Do not stand on or above the designated high level point of the ladder. Don't stand on the side of the ladder without treads. Do not straddle the top of the ladder. Extension ladders must be secured at all times to prevent displacement. They must extend 3 feet past the area you're accessing, and they must be at an angle of 4 to 1 at all times. Regardless of the type of ladder you use, you must follow all manufacturer recommendations for use. You may consider additional fall protection, too. Scaffolding. A scaffold is any temporary work platform, supported or suspended, and its supporting structure, including anchor points. Scaffolds are used to support people, materials, or both. Follow these steps to ensure your scaffolds are safe and secure. Always erect and dismantle scaffolding under supervision of a competent person. The competent person should determine the feasibility and safety of providing fall protection for you during erection and dismantling. All working levels should be fully planked. The working surface should support 4 times the intended load. The minimum walking surface must be 18 inches. All footings should be sound, level, rigid, and capable of supporting the loaded scaffold without settling or displacement. Tiebacks must be used at the height of 4 to 1 and every 20 feet thereafter. After the scaffolding is built, fall protection is required on levels above 10 feet. This is accomplished by having a handrail, a mid-rail, and toe boards. If handrails aren't possible, use a personal fall arrest system. Scaffold tags should be used to identify the condition of the scaffolding at all times. Cranes. An essential part of many construction activities, can be a safe, time-saving tool to get the job done, but you must follow many regulations before a crane can be used on a project. All crane operators must submit credentials of training prior to operating a crane on site. Appropriate ground conditions must be identified per manufacturer recommendations that are adequate to support the equipment and the loads to be imposed. The ground conditions must be firm, drained, and appropriately graded. The contractor must meet with the controlling entity to ensure the conditions are appropriate for the crane prior to mobilization on site. At no time are people permitted to be under loads, with the exception that they're engaged in the initial connection of the steel or hooking or unhooking a load. If assembly and disassembly of the crane is required on a project, the AD director must be identified and on the project at all times during erection and dismantling. If a lift exceeds 75% of the crane's rated capacity, it will be considered a critical lift. A critical lift plan must be submitted to the controlling entity, and a formal meeting must be conducted. All rigging must be performed by a trained and qualified rigger. The work zone, or swing radius, must be identified by either a 360-degree radius to include the maximum radius of the crane, or demarcation boundaries, such as flags, or a range limit device must be used when working near or within 20 feet of overhead power lines. The crane operator has the authority to stop and refuse to handle loads if he determines an unsafe condition exists. Signal persons must be trained and qualified. The communication, if not hand signaling, must be on a dedicated channel. Holes. Falls through floor openings and material falling through holes cause too many injuries in construction. A hole is defined as any opening more than 2 inches in its smallest dimension in a roof, floor, or walkway. All openings in a walking working surface meeting this definition must be covered. All hole covers must be able to withstand 2 times the intended load of the people working, their equipment, and material. All holes must be marked hole or cover. Fire protection. Fire protection is everyone's responsibility. Nearly 6,000 workplace fires occur each year. You need to know what to do if a fire occurs in your workplace. First, you should know where the closest fire extinguishers are located at all times. Fire extinguishers are required to be located on every emergency action stand and present during any hot work operations, which means any project that produces an external spark or flame. All fire extinguishers on site must have annual inspection tags, monthly documented inspections for Shield Sexton, periodic inspection for contractors, and must be conspicuously located every 3,000 square feet, or no more than 100 feet of travel from the protected areas. At minimum, a 10B fire extinguisher must be present within 50 feet of 5 gallons of flammable or combustible liquids. No more than 25 gallons of flammable liquids shall be stored in a room outside an approved flammable storage cabinet. Flammables are not permitted to be stored in gang boxes. Flammables must be stored in labeled and approved containers only. And take measures to protect bulk fuel storage from vehicular damage. Compressed gases. Compressed gas cylinders can be hard to maneuver. They're heavy, smooth, and hard to grip. They have valves that are easily damaged, and the gases contained within can cause damage to people and objects nearby. To handle compressed gas cylinders safely, never carry them by hand. Store them in an upright position at all times. Make sure they're secure to prevent displacement. When not in use or at shift's end, they must be broken down, bled, and capped. Separate oxygen and acetylene by 20 feet or a 5-foot tall half-hour firewall. Electrical safety. Construction is easier with electricity, but it can be dangerous too. Ground fault circuit interrupters provide power while reducing the risk of electrocution. Ground fault circuit interrupters are required at the source anytime you use an extension cord. Extension cords are the most common way to deliver electricity to the tools and light necessary to complete our jobs. Temporary wiring must be elevated out of standing water. Be inspected for damage before use, including inspecting insulation for damage and missing ground prongs. All lighting strings must be caged to prevent damage and have no missing or broken bulbs. Temporary lighting must be on a dedicated circuit, supported with non-conductive material and supported per manufacturer recommendations. Lockout/tagout. Lockout/tagout programs cover procedures for dealing with energized or moving equipment. You must install a lock at the source to ensure it's safe to work on. Locks shall be made available from your on-site supervisor, and they will provide you with a tag at that time. These tags show who locked out the piece of equipment, the duration in which it will be de-energized, and a phone number of the individual who maintains the key. Prior to locking out any devices, you must follow certain procedures. Lockout/tagout will be carried out by authorized personnel only. The person performing the task must fully understand the type and magnitude of energy being controlled and the means and methods of controlling energy. Before applying lockout devices and tags, notify all affected employees and contractors. Shut down equipment by using normal procedures. Locate and isolate all devices from the energy source. Apply the locks and tags. To continue, control any stored or residual energy, such as repositioning, double blocking, or bleeding down the system. Check that all personnel are in a safe position and verify that the system is properly isolated and locked out. Excavations. Excavations can be extremely dangerous. An average of 50 people lose their lives in excavations each year. Many don't realize how heavy soil is. In fact, soil weighs more than 100 pounds per cubic foot. 1 cubic yard weighs more than a ton. For all excavations, a competent person must be identified and present at all times, and they must be qualified to determine soil classifications. On our projects, all soil is considered Type C unless otherwise classified by a competent person or a qualified testing agency. Benching of excavations is prohibited in Type C soil. All excavations more than 5 feet in depth require sloping and shoring. All excavations of more than 4 feet in depth require a ladder or ramp for entry. The ladders and ramps must be accessible to all employees and contractors within 25 feet. The on-site supervisor must complete a daily excavation and trenching form. Motorized equipment. You'll find motorized equipment on nearly all job sites. Powered industrial trucks and heavy equipment are most common. However, the most important safety element for any piece of equipment is the operator. If you're asked to operate this equipment, remember the following. You must be trained by your organization before you can operate equipment. If a seatbelt is available, you're required to wear it when operating the machine. You must have a functional, audible backup alarm or a spotter to operate equipment with obstructed rear views. When visibility conditions warrant additional light, the vehicle must be equipped with 2 functional head and tail lights. A powered industrial truck is considered unattended if the operator is more than 25 feet away. A load is not permitted to be suspended in air if the equipment is unattended. You must have a clear line of sight at all times. If your view becomes obstructed, stop. Remember, you have the authority as an operator to stop work when unsafe conditions exist. When riding as a passenger, you must be seated in the passenger seat, and you're required to wear a seatbelt at all times. Seek the direction of your supervisor or member of your management team if an alternative is needed. Confined space entry. Many construction sites contain spaces considered confined. Because their configuration hinders the activities of the people who must enter them, a confined space is defined as any area not intended for continuous human occupancy, having limited access or egress, or limited ventilation. You're not permitted to enter a confined space until you've been formally trained. Stop work immediately and seek the direction of your supervisor if you encounter a confined space on your project. Chemical hazards. Hazard communication standards, including what they cover and how they protect you, are typically not well known. Safety data sheets list all the chemicals associated with a product, including the hazards associated with it and requirements for protecting yourself. SDS information is located in the project office on site or with the on-site supervisor. Follow these steps. Review your safety data sheets before utilizing any product. Follow all requirements for personal protective equipment. If you don't have the personal protective equipment you need, stop and consult your supervisor. On some job sites, you may run into hazardous products like asbestos and lead. Asbestos is a microscopic fiber that has been used in the construction industry for many years. Fortunately, it's not as common today as in the past. If you encounter asbestos, or what you think is asbestos, stop immediately and contact your supervisor. Lead is another material potentially dangerous to your health. Research suggests the primary sources of lead exposure are deteriorating lead-based paint, lead-contaminated dust, and lead-contaminated soil. If you encounter lead on your project, stop immediately and contact your supervisor. Emergency procedures. No matter what your position on a construction site, you need to know what to do in the event of an emergency. Knowing correct emergency procedures could save your life or the lives of those around you. In the event of an emergency, contact the following people: the 911 operator, the site supervisor, the Shield Sexton Safety Director. Air horns will be used to notify you of an emergency situation. A series of short blasts means there's a fire or emergency situation that requires you to evacuate. A long, continuous blast means there's severe weather, so you must seek shelter immediately. Every job site has an evacuation rally point and a severe weather rally point. Your site supervisor will be able to provide that information. First aid kits are located in the project office or with the on-site supervisor. Every contractor is required to have an individual trained in first aid and CPR on site at all times, and a first aid kit large enough to manage the number of employees on site. Remember, when performing first aid, there's the potential you may come in contact with blood or other body fluids, which may expose you to the potential of blood-borne pathogens. Never touch bodily fluids. Notify your supervisor if you've had contact with blood or bodily fluids. Treat all blood and body fluids as infectious. If you're providing first aid, wear protective gloves and eyewear. Wash your hands and all other body surfaces if you do come in contact with blood or body fluids. Shield Sexton has a specific incident reporting procedure that must be followed for every incident, regardless of severity. Every accident or injury must be reported at the time of the injury. If your incident is not reported immediately, your claim could be denied. Employees and contractor employees must go to the designated clinic for each project. Clinic locations will be posted in the project office or with the supervisor on each project. All incidents, regardless of severity, are treated as an opportunity to learn from the activities, behaviors, and decisions that led to the incident. Many of those incidents will merit an incident review meeting, which will yield valuable lessons that will be implemented in future projects, making our projects a safer place to work for everyone. Safety first isn't just a saying on a sign we all walk by and don't notice. Our program is focused on reminding you that safety is a real, tangible, conscious effort we must make every day. Safety is something in which we can all actively participate and manage in a realistic way that puts workers first. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and learn about our safety program. By adhering to these principles, we ensure our commitment to safety continues for decades to come. If you have questions, contact your supervisor or call the Shield Sexton Safety Director. Shield Sexton. Very, very carefully leading the industry.